Victoria 3's patch 1.2 last week was pretty significant. Strategic war goals, new map overlays, the map itself changed with new states, and of course a load of other changes to the tech tree, the UI and war. Well, today, colonization is on the chopping block, kind of, as well as more war changes to demands and diplomacy overall. If you missed my video last week, I'm actually almost proud of it, so I'll link that one below. It introduces you to this new patch, 1.2. Of course, one of the big things that came through was the private investment pool and the changes to the economic system. This basically allowed our populations to build buildings by themselves, depending, of course, on which population groups we let do it and how much money they have. But it was an important change because now in Victoria 3, we have some private economic activity. And as you can see on your screen, there were a whole host of other things. But in this video, it's all about how the patch has changed. So let's talk about 3 big ways that they've changed patch 1.2. And hot off the press today, they started by telling us that 1.2 as an open beta is in full swing, but there are changes that have either already been made available or will be coming very soon, maybe by the time you're watching this video. The changes will of course all be included when 1.2 officially rolls out if you're not interested in playing in the beta, but the focus for this update was around diplomacy, AI, war, and colonial claims. We'll start with the colonial claims, where they were trying to solve the problem of what they called ahistoric nonsense that we have going on with colonialization at the moment. For example, countries would rush for the northern island of Japan, Hokkaido, to get there before Japan itself. Or perhaps the United States would set up shop in Tierra del Fuego. Either way, the problem was that people were able to jump too quickly and grab too much. Quite simply, what it means is that some countries now start with claims on states owned by decentralized nations. If we go back to the Japan example, the northern island of Japan, Hokkaido, now has a claim on it that only Japan can muster. As another example, the Hudson Bay Company starts with a claim on Alberta in patch 1.2, while the United States of America does not. That means that the US can't just go in colonizing Canada without first forcing the HBC to remove their claim through the use of revoke claim war goal. You can see that they're bringing in other diplomatic levers here as well. The examples of course go on and on and on if you think about the colonization of Africa or even South America. One part that goes along with this as well are native uprisings, something that could often be a thorn in your colonial side. They've also changed in this update coming to patch 1.2. The native uprising diplomacy play itself has changed. Previously, a colonizer that defeated a native uprising would annex the entire decentralized nation where those natives lived. And that could sometimes lead to weird pacing and balancing issues. To address that, they've changed it to instead give the colonizer colonial rights, a diplomatic pact with the defending natives. It lasts for the duration of a truce. During the period, by the way, colonization speed is doubled and no more uprisings can occur from those pesky natives. The next thing that they shared more detail and changes about are the primary war goals, war demands. If you're unfamiliar, a problem has existed in previous versions of Victoria 3. Where you go to declare war, which you'll see me do in this gameplay, of course, I'm going to try and test all of this stuff out as we talk about it. You set a primary demand, and that primary demand, should the opponent decide to not go to war with you and instead throw in the towel and concede, is the demand that you get. If you want to take one territory, they'll wave the white flag and you can have it. The problem was that you could then get peace locked for 5 years and be unable to take anything else. They changed that by allowing us to now add more primary war goals. They shared some more detail about it though. Any war goal that's targeting your main opponent is added by swaying other countries will now automatically be a primary demand. So, for example, if you're deciding to attack France and Spain's got France's back, any country that you bring on your side of the war, targeting France, will have that added as their primary demand. This shifts up the way that other nations can be brought in and sometimes left behind in conflict. By the way, war goals targeting Spain in this example are secondary demands. The AI has also been changed, and we'll talk more about that slightly later in the video, but they made a special mention here to note that the AI understands these changes and should now place higher value on primary demands, since they're more likely to actually receive what's promised by the war goal in the end. And of course, as I mentioned before, we know that any additional war goals that we add, such as reparations or further territories, can also be upgraded into further primary demands, meaning that if the opponent backs out, you get them anyway. However, doing so is considered less justified than adding a primary war goal through swaying, and so it'll cost you more maneuvers, infamy, and so on. This is a really crucial part to how they're changing the AI as well, so we'll touch on this more as we move through the video. The third category of sweeping changes comes in the form of war in Victoria 3, and there are a few categories within it. They're changing war exhaustion mechanics, the peace negotiations with AI, and more generally, just how the AI behaves. The war exhaustion mechanics are crucial though, because these are the things that determine whether you win or lose a war, whether your war support goes up or down, and if you're anything like me, you might have noticed some funny things happen early on in previous versions. The example that they give here is the meta that they call just naval invade Berlin meta. What they're meaning by that is that basically, there was too much waiting on occupying a territory, so you could just run in, take the opponent's capital, and then sit on it and win the war. Less emphasis being placed on things that you might consider to be pretty important for a war, like casualties, for example, or overall losses on the battlefield. So in patch 1.2, we will still get war exhaustion from occupying enemy territory, right? From having our army, just like mine have done in this video, sweep across feeble nations next door. However, it's changing. The amount that you gain from occupying war goals or the capital is less. War exhaustion from occupation of other territories now scales non-linearly, with severity increasing rapidly as the country approaches full occupation. For example, a small country that is slightly occupied will still capitulate very quickly, but a large nation like Russia, which maybe loses control of a few states in the hinterland, is not really going to be affected. Instead, the primary driver of war exhaustion is now casualties and battles lost. The actual warfare, ladies and gentlemen. But quickly, we should take a break. Take a breather. War is an intense subject, just like this video. Thanks, by the way, for 48,000 subscribers. With the peaceful music drawing to a close, though, and now that you've finished staring out the window longingly, let's return to the topic at hand. The key shift here is that war exhaustion from casualties now scales against the total available manpower in a country. So, if you have an army of 10,000 troops, you're going to be much more affected by losing 5,000 casualties, whereas a nation with 100,000 troops might barely bat an eyelid, and this will be reflected in your war exhaustion and ultimately, of course, whether you win or lose the fight and get what you came for. There's also a neat little tip and trick here, by the way. Conscripts can be a way to call more in because the game only calculates it off regular battalions. So if you find you've lost, say, 50% and things are starting to take a real turn for the worst, you can quickly conscript some more people and now you've only lost 25%. Furthermore, war exhaustion from casualties scales against the percentage of battles, proportionate to the battle size, and battalions and so on that your side has lost. Ultimately meaning that a country that keeps winning battles can absorb more losses. So we're pitting our wins versus our losses here as well. Let's return to the AI, specifically though how it deals with warfare, because this is a two-pronged change. What they've decided to do is make the AI, in a nutshell, a little bit more stubborn, and a little bit more sure of itself when it thinks it can achieve its goals. Let's take a look. The AI for making peace has received upgrades. In addition to it now being better at constructing equitable peace deals, right, peace deals that are fair, through a rewrite in the logic behind it, the AI has now also been able to consider more angles when deciding whether it should actually accept your grubby little peace deal. Firstly, a new factor has been added called what they call achievable war goal. The AI will look at whether a war goal is likely to be gained by the side that holds it through capitulation of a target if a peace deal isn't signed. Basically, do we actually have to accept this guy's peace deal, or can we just keep fighting? Such war goals, if held by the AI, will make them far more reluctant to sign peace deals, unless war goals are part of that peace. However, the inverse is also true. If it looks like their back's up against the wall, they should be more likely now to just not want to get involved. Secondly, the AI now looks at more factors for peace, such as a really key one, the relative military strength of the two sides, and other factors have been tweaked as well, apparently. For example, the AI or the size of their gold reserves is less important to them now. Next week, finally addressing the elephant in the room, we'll hear more about what they've been working on in terms of performance. Until then, stay tuned, take care, and I'll see you next time.